Mr. President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
I wanted to spend a few minutes talking as if in morning business. I'm not going to offer unanimous consent, but I'm putting the majority leader on notice that I will do that before we leave here today or tomorrow or whenever we leave. Yesterday, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, Senator Carper, and I had thought we had cleared all holes on the Taxpayer Right to Know Act. And I want to give you a little history about that because for 2 years, the House and the Senate in conjunction, committees in conjunction, have been working on this bill. And the history goes back to a bill that was passed with President Obama, myself, Senator McCain, and Senator Carper. And it was the Federal Financial Transparency and Accountability Act, usaspending.gov. It was the first start towards transparency in terms of how we spend our money and where we spend our money. And quite frankly, as we got that bill through Congress, we heard the same thing from OMB that Senator Reid is representing today. President Bush and his OMB director didn't want that bill. They didn't want that bill. They didn't think that the American people ought to know where their spending was going. They didn't think that the American taxpayer ought to have the right to hold us accountable to know where we spent the money, on which programs, and how. And interesting, under Republican leadership, we passed that bill against the wishes of the OMB director of the Bush administration, and that bill became law. And the president has touted that bill as the first in a long line of transparency with which his administration has embraced the idea that the American people ought to know where their money is being spent. Since that time, we've passed the Data Act, which will move us towards better quality in terms of usaspending.gov. And then we have the Taxpayers Right to Know Act, which the majority leader objected to yesterday. And here's what the Taxpayers Right to Know Act says. It's the taxpayer's right to know how many programs in each department that we have, how much spending is going on in each program, and where's the money being spent. I mean, pretty simple, straightforward stuff that we ought to know about our government. So the question that I'm asking is why? Would anybody in this body object to us knowing where our money's being spent? Why would anybody in this body object to knowing how many programs each agency has? Why would anybody in this body object to coordinating with all the transparency things that we've done thus far and making so that in 2 years from now, the American people can actually see where their money's being spent, how much is being spent, on what program, in what state, and in what location? Now, if somebody can give me an honest explanation of why there's a logical reason why we wouldn't want to do that, I'll take that. And I won't offer another unanimous consent. But the answer is, from OMB, is it's too hard to work. Well, it's not too hard to work. That's exactly what the Bush administration said when we said we're going to have the Transparency Act and usaspending.gov. It's too hard. We can't do it. We can do it. The American people are owed that explanation. They're owed that transparency. And this administration, through its claims of being the most transparent, should step forward and release this hole. So before we leave here, I'm going to offer the unanimous consent request again. And if it's objected to, then what we're going to know is it has nothing to do with reality. It has nothing to do with honesty, has nothing to do with integrity, has nothing to do with truth, has nothing to do with being transparent with the American people, has everything to do with the federal government saying it's just too hard to be honest with the American people and let them see where we're spending the money. You know, I find that's really unacceptable for us as members of the Senate. And for a member of the Senate to stand up and say, I object to doing that, tells us that we have a long ways to go on much, much bigger problems if we're going to play the game because something's a little bit tough to do and we're going to fall for a complaint that we just can't get it done. With that, I yield the floor.